Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello. In the last few sessions, we talked about industry and economic and industry analysis, as a EIC analysis is known as, which talks about economic, industry and company analysis, which is part of fundamental analysis for a company's stock. We first discussed about economic analysis, there I talked about different trends in economy. In this session and the subsequent session, we are going to discuss about industry analysis, how industry performance is going to be observed and affecting the company's performance where the company belongs to a particular industry. So, in this session we will have the, as a part of industry analysis, we are talking about why we should go for industry analysis and what will be the performance of different industries in the particular economy, how do you do industry analysis, what is the process involved in that, and what is the relationship between business cycle and industrial sectors. Then we talk about industry life cycle, and then we will discuss about industry competition with the help of Michael Porter's 5 force model, and subsequently last we will talk about different valuation measures with reference to industries in a particular country like India or elsewhere for that matter. So, coming to the subsequent slide, we will talk about why do we have to do an industry analysis as such. This industry analysis is the second stage of EIC analysis, where EIC analysis is known as economy, industry and company analysis. So, having done the overall economy analysis where the company belongs to, then we look at the sector where this company is going to belong to actually. And in fact, some of the sector analysts will be there, some of the investors may be there who are very specific about a particular sector, like some of the investors or analysts may be interested only in IT sector or manufacturing sector, in manufacturing and automobile or steel for that matter, or maybe some of the people may be interested in the investment banking sector for that matter. So, in that way, before they go to analyze a particular company in that sector, they will like to look at what is the prospect of that particular industry in the present scenario, or what is the likely performance going to be for the industry in the subsequent time period. Then if that industry is particularly attractive for them, then they go for the particular company in that particular industry as such. So, this could be the, in fact, we will find that some of the people specialize in a particular sector, like analysts. If you look at, if you talk to them, they will say I am an oil sector specialist or a IT sector specialist. So, they will be in their career, they will be doing a thorough analysis of the particular sector, and besides the economy as such, they will be looking at, they will focusing on a particular sector as such, and they will suggest the clients about a stock in that particular sector as such. Then we move on to the next thing, that why we go for this. All industries in the particular sector in economy may not be performing the same way as such. Some of the industries may be performing better than other industries. So, in that case, if all the industries are going to perform the same way as the economy is performing, then industry analysis has no relevance as such. You can choose any company across the sectors, different sectors, if the company is good to invest as such. So, you are no need to have industry analysis for that matter. Then we have got something like what is the relationship between the market and individual industry. Is the industry return is commensurate, or is something like similar like market return which is being observed now, or it is something different than the market return. Is the industry return, industry performance some way counter to the economic performance, overall growth may be there, but in that particular industry, the particular maybe a counter stock or counter industry where it will be a contrarian sector there. So, there will be just when the economy is actually going up, booming up, that particular industry may be down as such. So, even if that particular trend is observed, then also one can look at that particular sector at a particular point of time in the business cycle. Then what are the different risks involved in alternative industries. One should look at what are the risks in the different industries. Are all the industries are same risk prone, or they are different risk prone as such. Some of the industries may be very less risky, some of the industries may be very high risky. So, high risky, of course, the high risk there is a potential for higher return. So, a risk taker may go for a high risk industry in that very moderate industry as such. So, that is why one can analyze the industry in terms of risk, also the return and risk, and find out which particular industry may be suitable a particular investor as such. Then we will also look at how consistent are the industry returns over time. Is this industry return that we are talking about is consistent? That means whatever is happening, the trend happen, that is going to happen. If that is the case, then okay, one can be certain about that, or there is quite inconsistent, or there is a lot of variation is possible, and accordingly the portfolio management can take place. Then looking at the industry analysis, we talk about one of the very fundamental thing that talk about is how sensitive is this industry to business cycle change. So, business cycle change means the business cycle may go up from recession to a peak and or a boom for that matter, then again it may fall down, then the cycle may go for true, and there could be a recession or contraction in this sector as such. So, how sensitive is the growth in this or sales or revenue in this particular sector to change in the economy? If the economy is going up, this particular sector sales is also going up, that means we can say okay, they are exactly cyclical, okay, that is exactly same as what the economy is happening. So, if the economy is going to boom up in subsequent period as expected, then is like, then one can go for this particular sector, because this sector is also going to go up in the subsequent period when the economy is going to go up. So, if you can find out, one can find how sensitive is that. If there is a change in good change or whatever favorable or unfavorable change in the particular economy, how sensitive is this particular sector to that. Besides that, there are two things one can also discuss, one can link here, that is what is the operating leverage, degree of operating leverage, as well as what is the degree of financial leverage of a particular sector or in a particular for that matter. When you talk about degree of operating leverage, we talk about what is the presence of fixed cost in the total cost structure of a particular company or in the overall industry as such. If the fixed cost is very high relative to any other industry, any other company for that matter, and variable cost is low in overall cost structure, in that case we can say that this particular company or industry has a high operating leverage. So, in such case, if there is going to be smaller change in the expected revenue, then in that case there will be major change in the expected profit of the particular sector or particular industry or particular company for that matter. So, what is the operating leverage particular company or particular industry in that particular situation? So, in that case similarly, what is the degree of financial leverage? Financial leverage comes from the phenomena that the company has certain debt in the capital structure and the financing structure. So, since debt is there, there is going to be a interest payment. So, if the for any reason, if this particular company or is going to have a downfall in the sales as such, irrespective of that, the company is going to pay the interest as such. Similarly, the company is going to have, or this particular sector is going to have a very huge growth in the revenue, the company is not going to pay more interest because there is a going to be higher profit or higher revenue for that matter. So, high degree of financial leverage or high degree of operating leverage will benefit a particular sector, a particular company in a very good condition. Similarly, it can harm a lot if the particular condition is that bad. If there is going to be if the degree of operating leverage, let us say 1, then in that case we can say that if there is any change in the revenue to the extent 1%, then the profit is going to also change by, operating profit is going to also change by 1%, but the degree of operating leverage is 2. If you can measure that is 2, then in that case we can say that there is a 1% increase is going to there in the revenue, there will be 2% increase in the profit or operating profit. Similarly, degree of financial leverage also can be interpreted like that. If the DFL is going to be more than 1, in that case in a favorable condition, this particular company or this particular sector is going to benefit, and but where the condition is going to bad, the company is going to lose a lot for that matter. So, one has to look at how, what is the DOL or what is the DFL a particular industry or particular company in that particular context. So, it may be advisable that one can avoid high operating leverage or high financial leverage companies during a particular period like a contraction, recession or the downturn is going to happen in that particular sector. So, that is one thing one has to look at before while analyzing industry for that matter. Then we move on to the next point. We can see here in this graph we have two sectors growth in sales. One is a tobacco products, another is a sugar as such. Why you have plotted this graph is that it is not necessary that all the industries will be performing the same manner. This is an example that in a particular period of time, let us say in the period like 99 2000, and there was a high growth in sugar, whereas there is a fall in the tobacco industry. Similarly, you can see for a particular almost up to 2003-4, we can see here that these two particular sectors are moving in opposite direction. That means, there is a growth, high growth here, there is a negative growth here in the tobacco product, whereas there is a growth, high growth in tobacco product, there is a lower growth in sugar as such. These are two sample examples. May not be, we cannot say that this particular relationship holds good for all the time to come. This is an example to show that different industries growth can be different in a particular period of time. So, in that case it may be advisable for that investor to switch from one particular sector to another sector depending on the performance of the different sectors, which we will discuss little more in subsequent slides. Next we see here, before we go to the industry analysis as such, the industry the entire economy is part of lot of certain production activity and service activities, then infrastructure sector could be there. So many different sectors of production services are there. So, all these sectors have been classified in a particular manner. There are certain code called standard industry classification code, which is almost same or almost common in different countries as such. So, if you can look at, there are 2 digit here, 01 talks about agriculture production and crops. Then in that you have got different sectors like 011 talks about cash grains, like then you have got 013 which is field crops or except the cash grain, then 016 which talks about vegetables and melons, then you have fruits and tree nuts. So, in a particular broad sector of agriculture you have got subsequent classification. In fact, in these 3 digit also you have got another digit, then in that will be talking about some other sub classification in general farms like that. So, they will have first 3 digit as 019, then subsequently one more digit will be there. Similarly, if you look at the petroleum products, there is a overall 2 digit code is 29, then petroleum refining has got 291. So, like that different industry codes are there. This is a classification done priorly, so that there is a comparison and one can find out that yes, this there is a proper analysis can be done and we can categorize a particular company in a particular sector, so that we can say for this particular company which particular sector has to be looked at. And this particular code is also, you have also some similar code like NAICS, like North American Industry Classification System. These codes are almost same, and one can have a look at the industry codes, a sample of that one can have here. You can see that the agriculture product, then second category comes agriculture products and livestock, then we have got 7th category agricultural services, the coal mining, oil and gas exploration, non-metallic minerals. All these are 2 digit codes, subsequently have 3 digit, and again in 3 digit one may have and some other classification in that particular sector, like in this case you have dimension stone, part of this 14 2 digit 14 non-metallic minerals, and diamond stone also may have multiple sub classification subsequent. So, one can have a look at that, and this is common as such, and it helps in the export trade also, and we have a 2 digit code, 3 digit code in that particular sector. So, we can have a comparison also across the country in what particular sector this particular company belongs to. Then, so having talked about different sectors, we have also another classification in terms of different stock indices. Certain stock indices like Bombay Stock Exchange has its got different indices like IT sector, pharmaceutical sector, realty sector, bank or financial services sector, like that, and they also make a classification of different companies different indices, so that they can track the performance of particular indices. And similarly, in National Stock Exchange in Indian context has also in different indices for different sectors, besides the broad based index like Nifty, similarly broad based like Sensex. Besides that, which is a very diversified broad index, they also have different sector specific indices. So, one can look at the performance of those indices as such, which represent the particular industry as such. Then But one note one can have here is that this particular analysis may not be very much perfect as such. There may be some ambiguity, but it serves as a good aid for the fundamental analysis. At least we have got a narrowed down to a companies, but narrowed down a particular sector as such. One of the limitation could be that it is not necessary that a 100 crore turnover company in a particular sector is comparable with a 1000 crore turnover company, or an old company in a particular sector is compared with a new company. So, such limitations do exist for industry classification, but having said that, it does serve as a very good aid for a fundamental analysis. One can see an example. I talked about the different sectors may be performing a different way. If you look at this particular slide here, we have got two broad based index like S&P CNX Nifty, or Nifty popularly known as, which comprises 50 stocks, which has given 15.75% average return on net worth in that particular compared to all the 50 companies. 15.75% return on net worth is there, and similarly BSE Sensex has got around 16.60. So, they are almost same returns they have offered as a group. Whereas, in that if you look at the other indices, other group of industries like information technology has the highest, those companies in that particular sector on average has given some 24.22% return. Similarly, we have got 18.19% for mining, then 11.88% for machinery sector or machinery index, then we have 1.06 very small return that has been given transport services, and textile sector has given something like a negative return in this particular time period. So, this particular graph shows, or the chart shows that yes, there are different industries which perform differently at a particular point of time. It is quite likely that whatever performance we are seeing in this particular graph may be something different in subsequent time periods. So, it may happen so that the IT sector may give a lesser return subsequent period. So, this is time subject to a particular time period. It need not be that it is going to be consistent over a time period, but it is to show that different industries give different returns for the investors in a particular point of time. So, that shows that industry analysis is important. If they were giving all the industries giving same percentage return, then in that case industry analysis was irrelevant for that. Another measure that one can look at here is the annual index return for 2009-10. So, what we have done here in this case, we have taken the closing average closing value on 31st March 2009 for these different indices, including the two broad based indices like Sensex and Nifty, and we have also taken the figure on 31st March 2010, that is monthly 30 days average on that particular period of time, and these two values have been compared, and having compared, one can see here there is a 84.78% as far as the Nifty is concerned. There is 84.78% return has been there in 1 year. Of course, this high return is possible because in 2008-9 we had a downturn, the very heavy fall in the market. So, because the lower base in 2008-9 itself, we have got a very high return in 2009-10 in the 1 year period of time. But having said that, we can see here this broad based indices like Nifty has 84.78% and BSE Sensex has something like 92.35%. But if you compare, if let us say one takes this BSE Sensex or S&P Nifty as a benchmark, we can see there are certain sectors like metals and metal products or IT, transport equipment, they have outperformed the broad based indices like anything. They have given more than double the return that the broad based indices have given. At the same time, there are certain sectors like food and beverages, chemicals, electricity and communication services, where the overall return actually has been lower than the benchmark returns like Nifty or Sensex for that matter. So, this shows that again another proof that different industries give different performance, different returns for different people at a particular point of time. So, all the industry do not perform in the same manner as the broad base or as the broad economy is actually performing. So, this highlights the importance of going for an industry analysis as such. Having done this having said that yes, different sectors offer different returns, it is not necessary that in their particular sector, like let us say for example, in this case there is a construction sector, there are a couple of companies as a part of the construction sector indices here, which has given overall 156.19%, but it is not necessary that all the companies that is part of this construction index will be giving same 156.19% return. All these companies may offer a different returns as per the companies are concerned. So, in the industry itself also it is not necessary that all the companies will giving same return. In industry, one may again go for a company analysis to find out which particular company is going to be better company compared to other company in that particular sector. So, having done the economic analysis and industry analysis, it is also pertinent or important to go for this specific company analysis, then zero on a particular company or group of companies to be invested as a portfolio for that matter. Then we talk about what are the different steps or the different processes is involved in when one will look at industry analysis. One is that you can look at is the relationship between the business cycle and industrial sectors, whether the industrial sector, particular sector is moving in tandem with the overall economy, overall business cycle, or it is just counter or contrarian to the particular sector, or they are just they may be leading ahead of the overall economy, or they may be lagging behind the economy. So, the economy is going to grow next year, possibly this particular industry sector may grow subsequent year as a reaction to that. So, like that one has to look at what is the relationship between the business cycle and the industrial sectors. Then one has to look at, is there any structural economic change that has happened, alternate industries have taken place, new technologies have come, where the in a particular sector, in a particular industry, this particular change might have taken place. There may be certain products which may become very much obsolete because of the technology that has taken place. There may be new products, there may be new technology, there may be new services that have come up because of different changes in the lifestyle possibly, or the technology for that matter. So, those also have to be looked at, because we may find a particular industry be attractive now, but it may happen so that after 2 or 3 or 5 years for that matter, this particular the products sold by this particular industry may become redundant as such. So, those industries may not be good value proposition to invest as such. So, those things also have to be looked at. Besides the responsiveness of the industry in a particular in the business cycle, to look at how this particular industry is going to be very much competitive, or there is a lot of people are involved there, or the products that are being sold are going to be just they are going to cease to exist, or they may not be just acceptable for the or liked by the customers simply may go for a substitute for that matter. Then we look at looking at the industry's life cycle. There are different stages of life cycle. If the particular product is introduced now, it may go for a initially lower growth, then it go to very high growth stage, then the growth may stabilize after some point of time, then it may go for a decline as well. So, how in this particular, if you are looking at industry, in what stage is this particular industry is there, the products of this particular industry is there, that also has to looked at. If it is in growth phase, obviously it is in attractive proportion. If this particular industry is in decline phase, there is a indication that if there is we have already invested a particular stock in that particular sector, we should exit from that. Unless there is a growth possibility, one shouldn't stay invested in this particular stock. So, this life cycle also going to help us at what stage we should invest and at what stage we are going to exit particular industry, which particular sector we are going to choose in subsequent time period also. Then one will look at the competitive environment in an industry. We will talk about the Michael Porter's 5 forces model, which talks of different factors that affect the industry competition, rivalry for that matter in a particular country or in the industry for that matter. Then coming to the first phase of industry analysis, we talk about the business cycle and the different sectors for that matter. So, in a business cycle context, before we talk about that, we have got 2 fundamental forms of economic trends as we discussed. One is there is a cyclical changes in commensurate or like the business cycle that is happening. Another is that in the structural, that the particular industry, the structure may happen because of technology or demography, the structure of the industry may go for a change as such. So, there are 2 trends which can happen. First, we talk about the cyclical changes and how different industries move in tandem or opposite or whatever, how we are going to go for different industry when this business cycle changes are taking place. Then and because if you go for a cyclical change, you can know that what is happening, then one can go for something like a rotation strategy, where one can switch from one particular sector to another particular sector if the particular sector is not going to be attractive. Then we can see here, before you go to this particular graph, we can see this business cycle here. In this case, we have got something like a peak, then you have got a contraction happening, then you have got the true here, then you have expansion, and subsequently we have got a peak again. So, then this is the time period and this is the economic activity that is happening. Now, if you look at this particular peak time period, there may be certain sectors which may be actually very much attractive. There may be some other sector which may be attractive in the contraction phase. There may be some other sector which is happening in the true, or some other sector which may be attractive in expansion phase. Similarly, like peak phase it will happen. For instance, if the company is if there is a recession is going to happen, is likely to happen, in that case the financial services sector they may have a better opportunity as such, because the recession has already come to a lowest phase as such. That means there is going to be likely to have some other activity where you will have more contraction is more expansion is going to likely to happen, recovery is going to take place. Then what will happen in that case, the company is going to invest in different projects, capital goods sector is going to be looking up, and because the capital goods sector will have more funds as such, the banking sector may go for loans to be given to different clients. So, this particular sector is going to go up. Similarly, if there is a recovery is going to happen, then lot of mergers and acquisition can also take place, and then lot of mergers and acquisition take place, then the financial service industry and investment banking industry is going to be beneficial. Similarly, when you talk about the recession has taken place, the contraction has taken place, in that case we will find that consumer durables goods or capital goods, all the sector are not going to good, because there is not going to demand, because the disposable income itself of the investors is very low. So, they will like to go for basic necessity like food and basic food sector or basic pharmaceutical or health sector for that matter to some extent. So, they are going to be the better sectors compared to others. It is not that these sectors are going to do exceedingly well, but they are going to be better compared to other sectors as such. Similarly, when the economy is going to look up, there is a lot the economy has already got expansion phase, it is likely that the inflation is going to be there. In such a type of sector, the basic metals sector, basic industry sector which is supplying the raw materials to the different productive sectors as such, they are going to benefit, because they can possibly get a higher price for the raw material that they are having as such. So, this particular sector is going to be better as such, because there is a good, they can pass on their price higher cost, they can face a higher price because of the inflation that has taken place. At the same time, if there is a higher already inflation is taking place, and there are industries like banking sector, they are going to suffer as such. So, like that, looking at the different season, different cycle, one can go for that, and to after that one can go for a rotation sector, and you can make a summary of the sector rotation here, that if there is a peak season, then we can go for something like natural resource extraction funds, because they can have a better price for their products, or they have got the raw material for that matter, and they can pass on to the supplier for that, assuming that they can pass on this particular cost to the supplier, and they will have a higher fetching higher price for their material supplied. Similarly, in contraction phase, defensive industry like pharmaceuticals or food, basic essential sector are going to be better, because people will consume these things, and so this sector is going to relatively better than other sectors. So, as we discussed earlier, it is not that they are going to be much offering very high return for that matter, but their return is going to be likely to be higher than any other sector in that particular period of time. When there is a true phase as such, then in that case, because that is already the contraction has taken place. If you look at the graph here, the true has happened here. So, there is already a contraction that has taken, ultimate fall has taken place. Now, there is going to be a expansion, and because there is an expansion going to happen, then obviously we will go for those expansion require certain fixed assets investment, certain capital expenditure. So, the capital goods sector will look up, because their expansion is going to happen elsewhere. So, they will have expansion now as such. So, this particular sector may be attractive when the expansion is likely to happen in other sectors as such. When the expansion actually takes place, then the cyclical industry like consumer durables, because in the expansion phase the investors disposable income is higher, they can spend more now. So, they can go for now like consumer durables like TV, refrigerators, electronic products, because they can they have more savings in their hand, where they can disposable income is more, so they can go for that, and in that case the cyclical industry is going to be benefiting for a particular sector. So, once you have this particular stages of business cycle, it is not that during a particular peak we should go for that. If the beauty of this particular industry analysis is that or the intelligence of the analyst is proved when you can see that the peak is going to happen, then just before that particular, and the peak during peak season, that if you are talking about natural resource extraction farms are going to do better. So, before just the peak season peak takes place, then one should go for investing this natural resource extraction farm, not necessarily that when actually the peak takes place. So, one should be intelligent enough to find out what is the likely industrial growth or a likely business cycle change in subsequent period of time, then now we choose for that, because in that case they are going to do better in subsequent year as such. It is not necessary, it is not, may not be worthwhile to go for investment actually when the trend has taken place. We should preempt that what is going to happen in subsequent time period, then go for investment. Similarly, if you can preempt that there is going to be decline, and this decline in the business cycle is going to happen, and because of decline business cycle, this particular sector and particular sector is going to also decline. In that case, it is advisable that before the decline trend comes, maybe during just the decline takes place, or when the industry has already gone to peak, the cycle is already in a peak condition, it is better that one should exit from particular sector as such, because they are going to be same like the what is business cycle. The business cycle is going to fall, these particular sectors in revenue is also going to fall. So, it is better that one exits. So, one has to preempt this particular movement in this sector than just saying that yes, this particular sector is going up or coming down. So, one should see how it is going to happen in future, and accordingly the exit or entry options can be taken care by the investor for that matter. Then we have got different other variables, that is which will affect the industrial sector as such, like we have got something different economic variable that affect the different industries, that is we have got inflation, we have got interest rates, we have got international economics condition, we also have got certain like something like consumer sentiment. Coming to the inflation, inflation as such has got a negative effect on the industrial sector as such. There is a stock return for that matter, but there may be certain places where inflation may be beneficial as such for a particular sector, as we discussed, like basic industries, basic metal industry for that matter, basic input industry for that matter. So, during inflation they can fetch higher price for their particular products produced or supplied to their clients or for the accounts for that matter. So, those particular industries are going to do a good thing and during when the inflation is actually there, but inflation is also going to affect negatively several sectors. Because of inflation, what will happen, the like let us say banking and financial services sector, if the inflation is going to be there, then the interest rate is going to be higher. As the interest is going to be higher, there may be very less demand for the loans for the bank as such. So, in such case the banking and financial industry will not be attractive when the inflation is very high. Similarly, the inflation reduces, what will happen in that case, inflation is low for that matter. So, the interest rate is going to be lower, the interest is going to be lower, then what will happen, there will be good demand for the products, there may be like housing sector, there will be good demand for the houses construction can take place, because the interest rate is lower, they may be more affordable for the investors or the people for that matter. So, they can go for a house at with a loan with a very less or lower interest rate as such. So, inflation being low can be beneficial for a banking and financial service sector, inflation being high can be detrimental to banking and financial service sector. Similarly, several other sectors, if some country, one of the sector or particular company is there which is not able to pass on the higher input cost because of inflation to the particular to the clients, their clients or their customers for that matter, then the inflations can be detrimental for that. But as long as the increase in the cost because of inflation can be passed on to the customers In that case, inflation is not going to be detrimental. If this inflation cannot be increase in price because the inflation cannot be passed on to the customers, then there is going to be a problem for those sectors which is affected by the input price rise, inflation in that particular input price for that matter. Then we have got certain things like interest rates in the overall economy. Interest rates can be a function of different things in the country, but at the same time the interest rate let it be affected by different factors, but interest rates then itself can be more or can be less because of certain factors as such. So, as we talked about in case of inflation, the interest rate is going to be affected, banking financial sector is going to be affected for that matter, but at the same time the interest rates decline, there is going to be a lot of demand for different things which requires a loan finance as such. So, the capital goods sector can benefit because of reduction in the interest rate, because they can go for capital goods because they need lot of money for producing them, they need a lot of amount of loan as such, the loans is available cheaper. So, the capital goods sector is going to benefit out of that. Similarly, the interest rate is lower, banking and finance sector is going to benefit. When the interest rate is going to be higher, it is going to be detrimental for the banking and finance sector as such. And if interest rate is going to be lower, housing industry, construction industry is going to benefit out of that. You have seen just in India, we have seen last 1 or 2 years, we have seen that because of the higher interest rates, we have seen that the demand for the houses, demand for besides the change in the disposable income, interests also have played a negative role in case of that. So, what has happened? The government has gone for a policy intervention where they have got softened the interest rate, they have the banks have come with certain lower interest rate particular period of time. So, that there is a demand for the particular sector where the banks have given these favorable interest rates for housing loans as such. So, that the demand for housing loan and subsequently the demand for the housing sector, housing construction sector also taken care because of that. So, the government also can come for some policy intervention if certain adverse trends is happening in this particular macroeconomic factors for that matter. Then we have certain other factors like international economics as such. Of course, international economics changes can have a very broad effect on different company specific things factors as such. We have seen in the last few days, the last few months, something happening in European country like Greece going to almost bankruptcy. So, overall condition in that particular country or particular Europe for that matter has affected the performance of the different countries sector or different countries economy for that matter. But that is one general condition which can be detrimental or which can be favorable for overall internal sector for different countries can benefit out of that particular favorable or unfavorable change or may suffer because of unfavorable changes there. But at the same time, if a particular industry is dependent upon let us say more of imports, if there is this particular currency of that particular countries where the company exists or industry exists is now going for a devaluation or the currency rate is actually the foreign currency rate is higher now, in that case this company which is depending on lot of imports is going to suffer. So, a favorable currency is going to affect, favorable currency means let us say rupee appreciates and that is going to be detrimental for import based industries because their import cost is going to be higher as such and they have to pay more foreign in terms of foreign currency. Similarly, if the for any reason the export currency is being now strengthening or currency has weakened, then also the export sector also can be affected. So, if one is company is based on the exports as such, in that case what will happen if the currency condition is currency is not strengthened as such, that means we are going to pay more in rupee for $1 for that matter. So, those export oriented undertakings are going to benefit out of that. So, unfavorable currency, when you say the domestic currency is undervalued, not valued properly, or we are going to pay more for more domestic currency for one single unit of foreign currency, in that case the export oriented industry is going to benefit, whereas import based industries are going to suffer because of that. So, it all depends upon where are the customers in particular industry as such. So, look at Indian IT industry. majority of the percentage of revenue comes from the export as a services export or software exports. A very maybe 10 to 20% the total of the total revenue of particular well established IT companies comes from the domestic sales as such. In that case, if the currency rate is going up, that means you are going to pay more rupee per a dollar. That means you obviously you are going to realize more rupee for $1 for that matter. So, if you wish to have 40 or let us say $1 million of revenue, which is going to be same as in the subsequent year, and the dollar rate moves from 40 rupees per dollar to let us say 42. So, you are going to have $0.2 million million rupee or whatever extra because of the change in the foreign currency. Is not because that the company did some good marketing or good products have been sold, just because the currency rate has changed, that is why the company has benefited. Similarly, there is going to be the rupee is going to strengthen, where you are going to pay lesser rupee for 1 unit of foreign currency. These same export oriented units are going to suffer in that context. Then having talked about the international economy, then one more thing that we talk about in this is the consumer sentiment. If for any reason the consumers are not happy, consumers do not have the good disposable income, the sentiment is down, then irrespective of anything that is happening, and this sector is going to be declining as such. So, if there is a overall recession is happening, or interest is decreasing and increasing, or whatever reason for that matter, the consumers are not willing to buy more. So, obviously, the first thing that is going to affect where is the consumer durable goods as such, and the consumer durable goods are affected, likely to be affected, then obviously the capital goods which is helping the consumer goods in producing the consumer goods as such, they are going to be affected as such. So, there will be a cascading effect, because there is a lower ability of the consumers to purchase certain things as such. Obviously, irrespective of the bad consumer sentiment, good consumer sentiment, the basic necessity goods like grocery items, food, basic foods as such, basic minimum beverages, then pharmaceutical sector, they are going to have a moderate performance compared to other sectors. They may not be very high return as such, but they are going to have at least a minimum return, the minimum growth is going to be there in that sector. So, but in any case, consumer sentiment has got a lot of things to be affecting the industrial sector for that matter. Then we move on to another important aspect of industry analysis, that is your structural economic changes in alternative industries. So, what is when you talk about structural economic changes, we say that the particular industry may itself go for overhauling. So, you may find that particular industry has no relevance or no place in this particular present market. Take for example, the landline telephone service in this country at this moment. So, for whatever reason, maybe because of this more affordability or easy accessibility, easy affordability of the mobile. So, we can see that the landline have very less relevance. So, you can see there is a consistent decline in the number of telephone numbers and number of accounts for that matter for the basic telephone service and landline services as there. So, you can see the lot of withdrawal of landline is taking place as far as BSNL, which is the leading player in this particular sector, is there. But there is a subsequently we have got a lot of growth in mobile phone assets. So, coming to the like that. So, because of this particular thing, we can see that the landline sector has no relevance. We will talk little more about that subsequently. The first thing that we talk about which can affect the existence of particular industry is something like demography. When you say is a demography, you talk about different things like the age profile. If you look at the Indian context now, we find that a lot of people have we have got a lot of people in the age bracket of maybe 30 to 50 or something like that, 25 to 50. So, this is a 25 to 40 years age as such. So, this particular age group is obviously have got a very high spending habit. So, we will find such people going for more for departmental stores, more for shopping malls. So, retail sector is going to benefit because of the age profile. Let us say that this particular you have one country where we have got more people in the age group of let us say 50 plus years, obviously we will not expect those industry which require a lot of footfall like retail industry for that matter, to have better footfall if the age profile is like that. But those companies like whichever product which is useful for old age people as such, so such sectors are going to be benefits, having good thing because of this age profile is something like that. So, you can see that if you look at the age profile in Indian or emerging economies like India, China also, you have got lot of people in the younger generation. So, the products that is acceptable to the younger generation will have more relevance, and the age profile changes from the young generation to let us say more in the older sector. So, products which are acceptable for the younger generation will have very less, or maybe they become simply redundant as such. So, this one is age profile. Another thing we can talk about the we can see that the divide in urban and rural as such. We find more and more people migrating from rural areas to urban areas. So, obviously, the demand for the urban sector products which is there like basic facilities in urban city for that matter. You have got urban sector, you have got let us say entertainment industry is more vibrant than rural sector. So, if the people migrate from the rural areas to urban area, there will be demand for such products which is specific to urban sector as such. So, because of that one can see that there is a lot of demand for the particular products as such. So, entertainment industry may benefit because of that. Then we see the cultural change, ethnic changes also happening. So, we say change in the culture of the people, we have change in culture because of affected by the migration of different other countries people to your country. So, because of this all these things, the change in demographic, then you have got geographical phenomena like urban rural divide, urban rural composition. So, these changes can affect different industries in different way, maybe favorably, maybe unfavorably. Then we go to the next factor, that is the lifestyle of the people, what is changing or not. The lifestyle if you look at again in Indian context or emerging economy context, we are now going for more towards from joint family to a nuclear family setup, and we are also going to moving from a single source of income like instead of that you have got both the spouses working, and so they have got a lot of income as well. So, what will happen, there are different things one can look at here. Both the spouses work, obviously there will be there has to be something which will take care of the family security at a particular point of time. The children have to be taken care as well. So, if you see that the particular you have certain growth in that sector where you have the babysitting for that matter, if you look at there in that case you will find several agencies that have come up which takes care of that, because when both the spouses are working we have that. Similarly, the housing security sector also has been going up because nobody is there in the house at a particular point of time for that matter. Besides that, since both the spouses are working, they have got good amount of disposable income, so they have got a higher ability to spend. So, you will find that the consumer durable products like TV, you move from the earlier you used to have flat TV and ordinary TV to now LCD TV for that matter. Now, you go for different refrigerators which have got a lot of technological advances as such, because you have more amount to spend, you can go for that. So, all these sectors are going to be better. Then you have the propensity to spend, and we go for like restaurant, hotel sector, we go for tourism, we go for leisure sector. All those sectors are going to be beneficial because there is a high disposable income, and there is a small family now, it is easy for them to move as such. If there is joint family, lot of members are there, it is not possible to move all together. So, now the small family they can go for that. So, the leisure sector, the hospitality sector for that matter is going to have a lot of benefit because this particular change in the lifestyle. Then because of the change in lifestyle, we have the automobile sector, the people have the desire to own a car, whether there is a necessity or not, basic necessity or not, but desire to own a car. So, this is going to increase the demand for the cars or automobile sector for that matter. Automobile sector as well as automobile ancillaries, automobile parts, all these things are going to be affected by a chain reaction, because there is a change in lifestyle, and the lifestyle change is that all the families will like to own a car, be a small or be a big car for that matter. Then similarly, if you another lifestyle change is that because of this higher disposable income, people have demand for the housing loans, because they will like to go for a new house. So, the housing construction sector is going to be affected positively by such changes in the lifestyle. So, these are certain things which are going to affect different sectors possibly favorable or possibly unfavorable. So, as we discussed earlier, the beauty lies where we can see what is going to change happening in subsequent, so that you can take a position of buy or sell or exit or entry strategy prior to the change that is going to happen. Then we go to the next factor that is going to affect, there is something like technology. As we discussed earlier, we have got a mobile phone. Mobile phone is almost going to outplace the basic telephone services like landline as well. So, landline has almost going to cease to exist. So, that is what has happened. The companies have which have a landline, they have looked at alternative revenue generation from that. So, the same landline companies, they have now used something like broadband, which can be used with the landline as well. So, the landline is helping not for the telephone as I made some conversation, but landline helps the company because they have already have a very good network like fiber optic network for that matter, and so that particular network is now being used for providing broadband technology as such. So, this is the thing, the electrical changes. So, you can see that the technology is going to outsmart people and the different industries may suffer because of different industries going to there. One can see that another thing is the internet as a technology that has come up, that has affected several industries in different way. Look at the payment mechanism as such. So, now people have no desire to go for physical payment in terms of cash as such. They can see they no need to also use a check for that matter. They can simply go for internet banking account, and the internet banking account will, the help of that, you can transfer the money to your another account for another client for that matter. So, it has got a lot of effect in different sectors, like since we are going to internet financial transaction, the security has to also be there. So, the companies in IT sector or security sector which are going to give the security for that matter, they are going to benefit out of it, because this financial service sector needs this particular security to be there, so that there is an assurance for the account holders that there is nothing going to be, the money is not going to anywhere, it is going to the right place as such. Similarly, we have got technology like that, we have got bar coding that is happening. If you visit a retail outlet, a retail store, they do not type it, they just have a barcode and they just use this machine and find out that which particular stock is out. So, this particular thing is going to have a lot of implication for the software sector, which is supplying this particular technique as such. There is a lot of demand, there is a convenience because of that. So, because the inventory management is much better with the help of barcodes or RFID for that matter. So, any industry which is investing in this barcode or RFID or the enabling technology, they are going to benefit because of the technological changes. Similarly, we have got now the core banking solution. So, where there is no branch banking now. You go to, you have an account in a particular bank, you can go to any branch and have the same transaction like any other branch for that matter. So, there is no difference between a branch and another branch. You are not a customer of a branch now, you are now a customer of a particular bank as such. So, because of that convenience, people go for core banking. Banks have to invest in core banking, and say the banks have to invest in core banking, the technology also has to be there, the software has to be there. So, they have to come now. So, new things have come up in technology and software sector. Then we have got another thing, that is the politics and regulation which is going to affect the things there. Regulation like the say foreign forex regulation for that matter, the FDI regulation favorable, FDI regulation unfavorable. So, if it is favorable, then there can be a lot of investment from different parties, different investors across the country as such. So, when there is a lot of demand for capital and the domestic capital market is not able to cater the requirement of the need for the capital that is required by different companies in the sector in a particular country, then if the FDI norms are relaxed, they will have other investors from across the country to come and invest in that asset. So, favorable relaxation that is going to affect different industries, like particularly which has more of technology oriented, where you need technology support and you also need a lot of financial backup as such. Like you have got favorable and FDI policies for insurance is going to happen, then you have got already favorable FDI policy in communication, telephone communication sector for that matter. Similarly, there is a change in the import tariff or there is a certain export levies or export duties are in there, and there is going to be there, then there is going to be affected unfavorable to the export oriented industries. The import tariff is going to relax, any industry which is depending on the imports of capital goods or for the raw materials for the matter, they are going to benefit out of that, because the import tariffs have been relaxed for that matter. Similarly, certain particular political establishment may be favorable a particular sector. So, those sectors may be benefiting out of change in the government for that matter. We have seen, in this last discussion we saw how our industry analysis is going to be different. The industry itself is going to change. We have already seen that India being a country which is dependent more on agriculture, it has then moved to the manufacturing sector dependence. Now we see lot of revenue, lot of growth is happening in services sector. So, industries themselves may be there, but the growth in the industry may come down, may decline. Some other new industries may come up, and those industries may become attractive. Some industries may cease to exist because of technological changes. So, this is the thing that we discuss, and the subsequent session we are going to talk about industry life cycle, which is like this, and we will have more discussion on that. We are also going to have the discussion about Michael Porter's 5 forces model, which talks about industry competitiveness, rivalry answers, and also we are going to discuss about the industry financial valuation or financial benchmarks or performance measures like different valuation resources for that matter. Thank you.